my Adventure Family interview number 2. This week, you get to meet Tiffany. I found her story so inspiring, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. Here we go.
Hi.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Me too. You'd think after COVID, I'd be a Zoom professional.
Oh.
Well, not. Yeah, I was sitting here I think I don't know what I'm doing.
Also, you're zooming from a boat, so there's just added layers of.
We can use that. It's
difficulty.
fine. Yeah, I don't know that it makes a difference, but it can for these purposes. So,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, it's so nice to meet you. Hi.
You too.
So, thank you so much for hopping on to do this with me.
Of course.
I think other families who are towing the line for taking a big leap where they travel together,
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who really want to do it. But that's okay. I've got a pumpkin right here too, so we can just.
There you go.
I think that a lot of people actually want to do it and dream about doing it. And my hope is that through these conversations, they can be empowered by hearing from people who are doing it. I would love to hear your story from wherever you'd like to begin.
Sure. Yeah. So back in 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, everything was great. It was crazy. I'm a teacher, and I was teaching kindergarten at the time. So that was madness, for everybody else.
Yeah.
About 7 weeks in, we had family over in the backyard and had a celebration. We were just having people over, but then my brother-in-law got engaged, and we had a celebratory day with the family, champagne and drinks and whatever. And everybody went home that night, and my husband went to sleep early, and I was sort of annoyed, well, maybe he just drank a little too much. I guess I'll take care of the kids, whatever. And then a few hours later, he woke up just writhing in pain, and we ended up having to bring him to the hospital. And it was just a crazy 24 hours. They basically said his organs were shutting down, and so he was pretty quickly put into the ICU. And because it was early in COVID, there were no visitors. I couldn't go in. So this was on Mother's Day, actually, 2020. And then we talked to the doctors 100 times that day, and went to bed that night feeling like everything was going to be fine. And, he would just be in the hospital for a little while. And in the middle of the night, I just got the call that that his heart had shut down, and it was over. So that was, I don't know, you can't put that into words, but that was that was in May. So stopped working for that year. Really, my cousin came to live with us for a little while, and we all decided we were just going to drive to the mountains, kind of get out of town. So we went to the mountains for a few weeks, came back. A few weeks later, we decided we're going to drive to the East Coast. We just really, for me, it was I just had to get out of there. That was my whole life was imploding, and I had to get out. And I knew how to travel with my kids, and really just because my husband and I had done it, and we road tripped with them, and I had my cousin, and my parents came for part of it. And so I really kind of stepped into traveling a lot by people coming along with me and knowing that was what I needed in the time.
Yeah.
So the following year, I continued to work against, if anybody loses their spouse, do not work the year after if you can. I mean, it was awful. And the summer after that, I was just you know what, let's take a bigger trip. Let's go farther. And so we went to Spain and Portugal for a month.
Nice.
And that was really awesome. And I had a friend come for 10 days, and my boyfriend came for a little while. And at that point, I was dating him seriously enough for him to join us on a little trip. And I was kind of using that as a tester for if we could do this a little more long-term. I didn't even know was a thing. I think until you start really looking into full-time travel, you don't realize there are thousands of families doing it all over the world.
Yeah.
But I was just maybe if we could do 1 month, I'm a teacher. I don't want to teach other people's kids anymore. I need to give my attention to my kids and my mental health and survival. And I was maybe I should just take them out of school for the year, and we could just see the world. How cool would that be?
Yeah.
And then I was
Chills.
I was just Googling schooling around the world. And then you start to realize like, oh, there's this thing called world schooling. And there's a Facebook group with like 70,000 people in it. And there's hubs all over the place. And you just, it's like the light bulb goes on because you're like, oh, this is a way of life that's possible for people. And so then once I saw that, I was just like, well, we're obviously going to do this.
Yeah, amazing. So what were you looking for when you did that test trip for a month in Spain and Portugal? What were you looking for as evidence to kind of prove that you could do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not one of those people who like traveled internationally a lot as a kid or anything. My husband and I did a lot of travel domestically with the kids, tons of road trips, and I had traveled domestically a lot. But I was looking to see like, can I manage a whole new system? And we went to Spain and Portugal. So like, I'm not going to say it's totally like managing a new culture. It's very
Well, I
Western. It
mean, they
feels
do
very comfortable.
close their grocery stores from like 1 to 4. So that's different.
That's true.
And then they stay up until like 2 a.m. shooting off fireworks. So I'd say it's a
Yeah.
little different. And like everyone's naked on the beaches. So like,
okay, that was totally a shocking moment, right? Where I was like, let's go to the beach. And you're like, oh, okay. How do I explain to my kids that these women aren't wearing tops?
amazing. I know you're like, okay. So I think it's fair to say that's a pretty big cultural shift. I mean, you're not going to England. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
another language. It's very, I think
yeah.
you deserve credit. That's a big shift.
Thank you. Yeah. And then like part of it was also just, can I get them like, in and out of Airbnbs by myself? And can I rent a car by myself? And, all of those little details and the minutia that come with traveling. And again, like I was planning on doing it myself actually, but then my friend had also lost her spouse and she needed something to do. I was like, just come with us. Like we're going, come. And she did for 10 days. So
yeah,
I guess I was just looking to see if I was capable, if they were capable, how they handled it, what kind of impact it had. And truly that trip, we did 7 days in Portugal and then the rest of the month driving through Spain was like just magic. It was like so beautiful. And I was like, yes, we have to do more of this. My heart felt so happy.
I think the thing that makes this so unique is that you are, even though, yes, you've had friends pop in and out, ultimately you're the captain of your family ship, right? You're the captain of the whole thing. Because even if you have a friend joining you and they can act as a co-captain, it's your trip, it's your family, you're solo parenting this. And so I'm wondering, did you have any moments where you thought, oh, wow, I didn't realize how many things my partner did prior to this?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any stories about that?
First of all, in life, there's a million things like that, right? Like instantly after he died, I was like, oh, shoot, I wasn't giving him enough credit for the fact that he was doing this and this and this and this.
Right.
Which, I constantly want to be like to my married friends, like, recognize how much your spouse is doing because it's hard to recognize when there's two of you. But yeah, with traveling, it's a lot of tiny little things. I remember we pulled up to this place in Sevilla and it was right in the city center. There was nowhere to park. And we had to unload all of our bags and get into the Airbnb and meet the lady. And my friend was with us, thank goodness, because I was like, I have to find somewhere to put the car. And my kids were too young at that age to like leave them alone for the first time in a brand new place.
Right.
So I could have done that by myself by like taking them with me to find a parking spot. And then we would have all carried our bags for like 8 blocks. There are things that are just harder by yourself. Yeah. Or even just like getting alone time. Like now my daughter's 11, she's babysitter certified. So I can go and take a walk and lock them in the Airbnb.
Right.
And have contact with them. And I feel safe about it. There's a lot that's hard when you're by yourself.
That was actually one of the questions that I received. How do you get self-care time? How do you get that quiet time when you're with your kids 24/7?
So for me, the big thing is after bedtime. I try to be really consistent about bedtime. They're in bed between 9 and 9:30, like every night. Mm-hmm. And I mean, usually my boyfriend and I are hanging out on FaceTime or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then every once in a while, I do just go for like a 20-minute walk and they're here. Or sometimes, honestly, I'm just like, everybody, please just go to your room, put something on, watch whatever you want. Right. I need to get some work done, or I need to, read or whatever it is. Right. Currently we're in Ecuador and we're in an apartment building. And there's a lot of like retired Americans here, and they
Oh,
don't like children. We have received the
oh,
message loud and clear. They don't like the kids being
what?
here. And like my kids have been super respectful and quiet, but
Yeah.
like there's a rooftop deck. It's beautiful. It's not furnished. It's nobody's ever up there, and like they get in trouble if they're up there. As much as I hate it that they might spend more time on the screens, I'm just like, listen, I have to release that guilt because they need something to do. There's
Yeah.
no games here. They can't run and play. It's a balance.
Yeah, you just have to, but that's, I think, part of this lifestyle is you have to let go of some things and
Mhm.
you get to have these huge benefits of other things. And
I'm
well,
constantly telling myself that, like, okay, we are experiencing so much and seeing so much. It's okay if they have like an extra hour or two on their screen during the day.
so much more
Yeah.
stimulation everywhere. Just every time you leave your house, the stimulation levels are like 10 times the amount that they would be at home on their same routine
Yeah.
from school every day. So I think you're right.
For me, there's this very lofty goal of what this year is supposed to look like, especially
Mhm.
compared to like other families that are out there doing it and you see on Instagram. And even though I know everybody's Instagram is a highlight reel, nobody's showing their kids zoning out on their screens.
Right.
It's still in my head. I'm like, no, but we're supposed to be like just in it and unplugged and like still every night before bed we like watch something on Netflix and snuggle. You
No.
know, it's like we just need like some touches of home too.
I know that's another part of this that's so interesting actually is I'm realizing how many things we used for comfort that are no longer available, whether or not it's food or certain parks we'd go to or activities in the community that were regular that you don't realize you're using as comfort until they're gone. Think, oh, I actually miss all of those moms I'd talk to when I take the kids to drama. That
Yeah.
they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, we'd all have that one meal we loved for our kids. It's macaroni and cheese, and it just doesn't exist outside of
Yeah.
because you make it yourself. Of course, they think it's gross. They want like the Annie's mac and cheese.
And eating burgers when we can find them.
Totally. Have you found that when you try and buy burgers to make at home, they may not taste quite familiar?
I did I did try that once and they were both like, no, we're not eating that.
I've tried it a few times, and each time we take a bite, and I'm like, it's just different, you know?
Yeah.
It's not, this is maybe like a pig burger. I'm not sure what animal this came.
Yeah. Kind of like the milk. We're having that same issue with milk.
Totally
Like,
the milk.
because cereal is so easy, but if you can't find milk, you like.
So how old? 11-year-old daughter. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She's 11 and he's 9.
Okay.
So they're in 6th grade and 3rd grade.
One of the things I hear people say when they ask about this life is they say things like, "Oh, my kids would never want to leave their friends, or my kids would
Mhm.
just resist it immediately." How did you find that experience?
Like I said, I had made this decision and like once I make the decision, there's no going back. I'm just going to do it. And I had already decided, but I really try to make it seem like it was their idea
Okay.
to get them on board.
Let's hear it.
So basically I was like, you guys, I saw the coolest thing on Instagram today. I saw this family who took a whole year off school and they're traveling the world for a whole year. And they were both like, that's amazing. That would be so cool. That would be really cool. Maybe we should think about it. And they were like, really? Right. So I just made it seem like I hadn't considered doing it, that they made me think about that.
Right.
And then it's really hard to tell with kids who are grieving, right? Like how much change did they need? And because they can't verbalize it in the same way that I can.
Right.
So they were really just excited about it from the beginning. Now, there have been a couple times as we've gone that August has said in particular, I'm ready to go home, or like, I miss my friends. Like this whole thing was your idea. And I would be like, no, we totally made this decision as a family. You guys were so excited. And he's like, I just said that to make you happy. But overall, they've been really behind it. My daughter did make me promise we would only do 1 year.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good decision for all of us, because I could see getting just sort of like caught up in this lifestyle and continuing it. But I also see the value of community and really do miss that.
I think the absence of this conversation around what is lost when you make this choice, because there is a lot that's lost, and there are a lot of really beautiful parts of a traditional life.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it. Community is huge.
I think for me, I will speak just for myself in terms of like creating the content. I always hesitate to say anything negative about it because I think the perception is very much like, what do you have to complain about? You are traveling the world with your kids.
Right.
And I get that.
Right.
And also I really try to want to keep it like realistic.
Right.
But I do think it's hard for people to hear any sort of negatives or complaints
Right.
when we're doing something that seems so dreamy.
It's almost like you lose the privilege to experience hardship when you do something like this. I think another assumption is if you're doing this, you must have tons of money.
Yeah,
And that's
for
another
sure.
and that's another thing that's really tricky because I think it appears to the world as if we snapped our fingers and then this life just appeared. There's no awareness, and I don't even know if people want to hear it, that we've been saving for this for 15 years.
We sat down in there was like a parade here in town on Saturday, and we sat down next to this local guy, older guy. And he and I were chatting, and I explained to him, like, we're taking a year and we're going around the world. And he was like, "Oh, you must be rich." Right.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I hear that a lot.
Right.
But I was trying to explain to him, like, no, it's so expensive to live in the United States that as soon as you step out of the United States, it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe the life we can lead here for a fraction of the cost.
Right. Right.
And I think that part is also confusing to people. Like the other day, I posted something about traveling, right? And I get a comment from some random person that I don't know that was like, lucky for you, you can afford this, right? And so my response to her was like, it's not lucky, right? It's planned, like you said.
Right.
But also, like, there are ways to do this for so many people. And I was like, travel hacking is a huge thing for me. Yeah. It makes flights free. We stay in hotels for free often. I'm like, I'm happy to help you. Actually, like, I want to do that. Like, everybody in the world could be traveling way cheaper than they are. Yeah. You know, as long as you have a good credit score. So granted, not everyone has that, but that's something you can work on and become better at as a person.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear more about that because I saw one of your posts and I was really intrigued by it. You definitely hooked me on it. I was like, oh, cool.
Cool.
And I'd love to hear more about this. Is this something what are you doing with all of this education you're getting around travel hacking?
Well, first of all, I just heard about it and like started it myself. And then on Instagram, I was just like, I can't not tell people this. I just booked a flight to Amsterdam for $11, you know? And like, it sounds like some shtick, like I'm trying to sell you something, but it's really not. It is just straight up sign up for the right credit card and you get flights for free. It's mind blowing. Right. So then I just started sharing really regularly about what I was doing and creating guides to help people. And I'm an affiliate with Travel Freely, which is this amazing free travel app that helps you kind of keep all this organized. And so I'm offering like credit card consultations and all of that, just because I'm like, no, you guys, the world opens up to you once you start this habit.
Right.
So,
Well, you know that you brought that up. My husband has always been really creative he's passionate about saving money and he's passionate about being on a budget and spending as little as possible. So because of that, he's always been really creative about getting us flights for things. And at one point in time, I couldn't keep up with how diligent he was about opening credit cards, getting to the right. I mean, he'd like hand me a credit card and be like, this is the one you need to use for groceries for the next 60 days. And then you rip it up. Like, and then we're going to pay it, cancel it, whatever. And we were traveling quite a bit with young children and our flights were also free. It's incredible.
It is really incredible because people see your life and they're like, again, they must be rich. And you're like, no, I'm just working the system. And in an ethical and allowed way, the system is set up for you to be able to do this, like take advantage. You know?
What are your plans for continuing this work when you finish your year?
Yeah. So I think part of this year is also figuring out exactly the work that I want to be doing on the back end of this. At the beginning, there was a lot of pressure in my own mind of like, you have to document it all. You have to share it all. You have to like get brand deals and, you know, do all the Instagram-y things. Right. But I quickly realized that I can't do all that while I'm traveling. Like teaching the kids experiencing the place, trying to live in the moment and not, work all the time. So the plan now is to do what we're doing, to just share and, and then when we get back, to probably put a lot more energy into setting up a more robust system to help people with travel hacking and making that more of a full-time thing.
What were the biggest hurdles standing in your way of taking this year off?
I mean, my mom.
Oh, tell me more.
Not really. I mean, she wasn't really putting up hurdles, but it was like a solid year and a half of every time I saw her being like, please don't go. Please don't do this. I'm scared. I don't want you to go. And just reassuring her, I promise I'm doing the research. I don't want to bring my kids to dangerous places. I think our parents have this fear that like, we're still reckless kids. And I'm like, no, I'm 40. I'm going to make smart decisions. And so there was that, just like kind of convincing them that I was going to be okay. It's a hard thing to leave your job. And especially for me, I was a classroom teacher for 15 years. I was in education my whole life. Since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. But Mike's death just made teaching almost unbearable for me. It's this aspect of teaching is a very emotional job. You're managing all your whole class, all those little emotions, and then all of their parents, and then all of your colleagues. I just couldn't anymore. I would like go to work and give all of my energy to my class and to school, and then come home and have nothing left for my kids. So when I realized that this is unsustainable, and also as a teacher, and because I have all this experience, and there is also this safety net in the back of my head, well, I can always go back to teaching. And I think a lot of people forget, if you leave your job, there are lots of other jobs you can do. Right. So I tend to be, a risk taker. All of the other stuff that I think might scare people about traveling internationally with their kids, it didn't scare me or faze me too much. Just sort of like, I know we can do this.
Well, that's it. That's that thought. It's that thought right there that makes all the difference. When we really believe that we can do it, you just do it. I've heard you say a few times, like, I'm a risk taker, and you just said I'm a risk taker, but then I heard you say, and I know I can find another job. I know you're saying all of these statements that are really beautiful mantras of believing in yourself. So of course you're going to be able to do it, and you're going to find another job. You did find another job. Like you're working on your job. You look at that. I mean, it's really, it's so cool to hear you speak like that. And I really admire you, because I imagine this happens to you too. When you meet families that are maybe somewhere on vacation and they ask you what you're doing, and then you say you're doing it for a year. And when we say what we're doing, they echo back a lot of their fears. I'm hearing a lot of, oh my gosh, I could never teach my kids. I could never homeschool my kids. And it's so interesting, because when I hear them say that, I'm like, well, if you say that, then you're probably right. It's not going to work out for you. First start by saying something different.
or the other thing is, like, there are options. Like if your biggest fear and the thing holding you back is, I could never homeschool my kids, but you could figure out the finances to do it, and it sounds exciting to you, right? You could just hire somebody to teach your kids, right? Or there's like online programs. Like I have a girlfriend who's another widow, and she has said, I've thought so many times about doing this. I just don't know if I can. It's really the school piece. Right. And I'm like, hire a 22-year-old right out of college. Right. And they would be dying to travel the world and teach your kids.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
There's always some workaround to make what you want to happen. People get stuck in their own fears or worries. The other thing I'm realizing is, like, there's a ton of fear leading up until the like launch date. And even for me, like those last couple months, I'm sure this happened to you guys too. The last couple months, it was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then once we left, it was like, the travel isn't the hard part. It's still just the life stuff. Right. It's still just like the struggles with the kids and them arguing, or there's not a lot extra scary about being in a new country. Right. It's like maybe a little harder. Right. All those fears for me really, like, as soon as I arrive in a place and I'm like, oh, okay, we're good.
People have kids here too.
Yeah. There are groceries here and I can buy them.
Look, there's a hospital. Like, somebody needs help. We have medical care. Here, there.
Oh, I forgot to pack Band-Aids. I can actually buy them down the street.
I know it's a thing. Even it really is a thing. You kind of get
Yeah.
this panic around what is going to be available and what isn't going to be available. And I
Yeah.
had major Amazon addiction. I'm going to say it. It just was so convenient. I became so attached to these things that I thought I needed in 2 days, or maybe
Yeah.
even the same day.
Yep.
It's such a good exercise to get out and be like, okay, do I need that? Or can I go
Yeah.
get it? If I need it, it's right there. I think there is a lot of fear around, again, I can't speak for all of the United States. However, most of the fear that I hear is from Americans talking about traveling and it makes sense. Our country is massive. It's very
Hmm.
easy to get every amazing vacation you want within the United States and to
Oh
never have
yeah.
to leave. I think the reason I love travel so much is because when you get to a new place, you are reminded, actually, in contrast to what we see all over the news, people are so good everywhere.
Yes.
People
Yes.
are awesome and they want to
Yeah.
help you and they're friendly. And
Yeah.
we were in a grocery store in Tangier trying to find powdered sugar and it was nowhere to be found.
We
Just
have that problem too.
in the grocery store where we were in, we weren't getting a lot of luck with English speakers. So, I got on my Google Translate. Was brave. I walked up to these ladies that were shopping together and I just said, like, excuse me, I showed them what we were looking for. And before we knew it, we had like 6 ladies scouring the store for powdered sugar for us. They were
Yeah.
so nice. And I could have cried just at the
Yeah.
kindness in those little moments where they did not at all have to stop what they were doing.
Yeah.
And not only did one of them, but like 6 of them, they were like getting their friends. They were all kind of shouting around the store. And I don't even think they all knew each other. I know 2 of them knew each other, but
Because that's not like sensational enough to make the news,
right,
right? It's not like
right,
people are like, yeah, if you go to Tangier, the
right.
ladies are going to help you
They're gonna help you.
because you're
Yeah,
human and so are they. And
right. Yes. And we were in this crazy market in I don't mean crazy. I mean busy and
busy.
very stimulating, loud, lots of noise, lots of lights. And we were in Marrakesh in the market, and it was so crowded and so busy. And there was a guy with a pet monkey. There were lights flying everywhere. It was wild, and I
Yeah.
lost track. I was with our little one, and all of a sudden couldn't see my husband and the other 2, and my phone was dead. And I didn't have any cash on me, so I couldn't take a cab back to the hotel. And like I was mortified. For a moment, I thought, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? The tears are starting to well in my eyes. I'm looking everywhere. And all of a sudden, this man comes right up to me and taps me on my shoulder. And he points to where my husband and the kids were. He watched this whole thing unfold. I could have
Oh.
kissed him. Like I couldn't believe how kind he was and that he was watching this whole
I also will say there is always a consciousness of safety in my head when we're traveling. That is also present if I'm with the kids alone in the United States, right? It's just a little heightened because we're in a new place.
thing.
I use a fanny pack and I like strap it over my chest and I put it under my arm, right? I don't want to get pickpocketed. I just don't. It would be such a pain in the butt. If we are out and about, I have my eyes on my children the whole time. If I'm on a bus, I'm holding my backpack so nobody can swipe it.
Right.
We started our trip in New York actually, and I think New York is the place I felt the least safe out
Oh,
of everywhere we've been so far.
yeah.
So it's not like a outside America thing. It's just like in big cities,
Yeah.
people pickpocket. You have to be
Yeah.
careful.
And it's interesting too, hearing people if we make friends with people who are, aren't American, and they talk about when they visited America, one thing I hear over and over again is, oh my gosh, we were in the United States and we were in, name the town, whatever. And I was scared to go to the grocery store. So I thought I was going to get shot. And
Oh.
I thought, oh, right. Of
Mm-hmm.
course. Those are the headlines coming out of the US that everyone
Yeah.
else is reading. I have never walked into a grocery store in a foreign country and been afraid. Okay, so what did you do with your house?
So I was really hoping to do 1 year-long rental so I didn't have to deal with it at all. But I tried a few methods for that and just didn't have any good options. Like once I had posted on Zillow, I got a call from somebody who was like, have you thought about doing Airbnb? Talked it out. He ends up being a property manager, a small company. They're taking, I think for managing and for everything they're doing, a small percentage, which is 20%. So he does everything. Basically, he runs it as the host. It's just my house and it's getting rented out really regularly. And I'm making like I don't know, $400 or $500 a month on top of my mortgage and utilities. And so that's fantastic. That allows us a lot. The other piece for us financially is that as part of death benefits, my kids get a payout from Social Security. My husband worked in finance, so he paid maximum into the Social Security system. So they get a payout monthly, which was enough to cover my mortgage and like my car payment. It's a significant amount of money. So that essentially is my income as we're traveling. And then I don't have to worry about paying the house with it. So that has been good. Prepping your house to Airbnb is just like moving out, if anybody's thinking of doing it.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is a lot of work. It was hard to do by myself. I got a lot of help from my parents and my boyfriend and my brother. And
so where'd you put everything that you moved out?
I got rid of almost everything. And then like some of the kids' toys we kept and Christmas storage and stuff, we just put a locked door to the basement.
Okay. How do you deal with picky eaters and finding food they'll eat?
Yeah, both of my kids are really picky. I mean, we cook at home a lot. So usually we try to go out. We go out like once a day for a meal. Everything else we're cooking at home. So I make generally the same kind of things that we would make at home, which is a not recommended. Don't follow my recipe list of like buttered noodles and carrots pretty much every day.
I think you can find those just about anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, I mean, I'm still really trying to make them eat places where we've been so far. It's been pretty easy to find things they like. So we are finding like new things along the way. Here in Ecuador, you can go out and get like almuerzo lunch for $2.50, and it comes with popcorn and a bowl of soup and a huge plate of food and a dessert. And usually it's just like some sort of chicken and sauce and rice and beans and whatever. But so like 3 times I've forced them to go to that, and I'm like, this is what we're eating. Sorry.
Yeah, you'll be all right. Yeah, they'll be all right.
Food's by far, for sure, number one, our biggest struggle.
Yeah, it's huge. I don't know how I would do this without a kitchen.
I think that's the other thing is people think like, or people say like, are you staying in hotels? I'm like, are you crazy? Like, no, we're moving to another country for a few weeks.
Right.
We're not staying in hotels. We'd have to eat out 3 meals a day.
Okay. Oh, okay. How do you deal with medical or illness issues? Do you stock up on antibiotics and medicines?
Oh, no. So I don't know if my advice is followable here either. I love the pharmacy system in Central and South America. It's so nice. Like you just go in. My son had an ear infection, but I, deemed with an ear infection because we're parents and we know these things.
Right.
And we walked in and I said, like, he has an ear infection. This hurts. Yeah. The guy was like, does he have a fever? I said, no. He was like, here's the medicine. It's just, and it's like $3. It's just so much easier than at home. There's pharmacies on every block everywhere.
And the pharmacists are so helpful.
Super helpful. Yeah. I mean, so we haven't had anything major or big, and we're super careful about like brushing our teeth with filtered water, and we don't eat salads or anything that could have been washed in the local water. So far, we've been pretty good.
What is your motivation for what this person quoted extreme traveling? But I don't know if it wasn't about you in particular. It was about families who are traveling full time, who take a year off, or I think for a lot of people that is extreme traveling. You're not going to the Club Med for 10 days. And
sure. I mean, that's such a loaded question because there's like so many reasons, right? I think I never traveled abroad when I was in college. I was in the School of Ed and I was on a team and I just couldn't get away. And so I always envied my friends who were able to do that. And then later in life, I saw a couple friends quit their jobs and leave, like a single guy. But I just remember watching in total awe. And I'm obsessed with The Amazing Race. Do you watch that show?
Yeah, such a good show.
So my husband and I were super into that for years. We would just watch that show. And I think the motivation's to see the world, but also I think at the core of it, it's really about perspective and like getting outside of the bubble you were raised in and seeing that like the world is so vast. And even though we're all human, like everybody has such different perspectives on everything. And, one of the things I think that really was a catalyst to this for me is my boyfriend is from India. And so he grew up in India and Saudi Arabia, and conversations with him are fascinating just because like something that I see is very straightforward and clear as an American, he is just like, I see that so differently, and it really opened my eyes to like, wow, my perspective is limited, even though I think it's not, because I try to be well-rounded and aware.
Yeah.
You just can't be if you're living in one spot. And so that's, I mean, and I hope that for my kids too, right? That they can see all of these different things and ways of life, and an appreciation of what we have too.
Oh, totally. So many conflicts that exist in relationships and communities, I see as just a lack of empathy and perspective is at the root of so many of them. So traveling and meeting people from all different walks of life and different communities, different cultures who just innately believe different things to be, right and wrong, allows for so much heart opening and open-mindedness around, whoa, yeah, that's just, we could not be looking at this from more opposite angles. We both believe in how we're viewing this to be truth or right or whatever, comfortable. And it's such a good opportunity.
And I think it's also, it gives you really interesting perspective too on even like the division within the United States. How I would have thought about myself 2 years ago politically, I think has changed a lot also, just in terms of like you're saying, being empathetic toward like the quote unquote other side, and seeing that like we're really completely separate cultures living under the umbrella of one country. And for us to agree on things is very difficult because we are completely different cultures.
Right. Yep.
Just like if we were to go to Mexico, it's a different culture there too, you know. We just call it all American, so it's hard and confusing. And
I think when you get help in a grocery store from people who couldn't look more different from you and who are culturally practicing a lifestyle that is so different from mine, interact with these good, wonderful, helpful people, mothers, women, grocery shopping together, it's like, oh my goodness, how can we not love that they have their lifestyle and their preferences and their beliefs, and we have ours, and they can coexist.
And that's the beauty of the world. And you learn a lot about your own country when you leave it too. I think when you're living, it's hard to see the water you swim in. And then when you leave it, it's like, oh, that water's a little messed up, or that's really beautiful. Or do you guys have your schedule somewhere, your like map of where you're going?
We have a rough idea. I haven't put it out there yet because, just similar to what you said, I had no idea how much time this life was going to take up, just in terms of all the schooling, the housework, just here, get the actual sailing, getting from place to place, figuring it all out. My hope is that I will have more of a plot, charted out. Where are you headed?
Until Christmas, we're going Peru and Brazil. But then after, we're going home for Christmas. And then we're flying to New Zealand. And then from New Zealand, we're just going to go west through Southeast Asia, Australia, Southeast Asia.
Oh my gosh. I just got the chills again. I just love it. I cannot wait to follow along. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to do this. I'm so excited. And I hope you guys have an amazing lunch if you go out today.
Thank you. And happy sailing. I can't believe you don't like sailing.
No, I don't. That's awful.
I have so many questions.
Okay, cool. All right.
So nice to meet you.
You too. I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.